Alrighty, I'll call this meeting to order. Before we get started, let's introduce everyone on this meeting. I'm Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm you can hear me by verifying that you are present. Travis,
I'm here.
Patrick,
Here.
and Jonathan's not on yet, so once he gets on, we can let him respond. And Leah,
I'm here.
and is Jan on, or?
I'm here.
There you go. So that's staff. Okay. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, as most recently extended on March 20th, 2023. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. This meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. This is done on the phone by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker and agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. During periods of public comment, participants must use the raise hand icon in the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. This is done on the phone by pressing *9 and then *6 to unmute you when you are called on. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time and will be promoted to speak. Finally, each vote will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the Commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside this purview need to be addressed to the appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the Select Board, and traffic concerns must be addressed with the Planning Board. All right. Okay, and it looks like Jonathan's on. So if you want to just say, hey.
Hello. Sorry, I'm running a minute late here. Got caught up.
Not a problem at all. You were here. That's great.
I am present. I can hear you. And I heard the tail end of you reading in that.
All right, very good. All right. So, action items. Anyone in particular as I move so you don't see my backside of my cat?
We can just go right down the list if you want.
Sounds good. So up first is an extension request for 232 Worcester Street.
Yeah. This is so this is the parcel that they carved off of Wyman Gordon in the front for the warehouse.
Oh, yep.
They haven't gotten underway yet. They were waiting on approval from MassDOT. So this is their first extension request. Their permit expires this coming March. They're asking for an additional 3 years. I don't have any issues with that.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
Move to issue a 3-year extension for 232 Worcester Street.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Okay. Request for certificate of compliance, 260 Highfields, Old Upton Road.
Yeah, this was so Highfields is cleaning up all their old orders as they're finishing up the subdivision. This one is quite old and it was for a water line extension. The part of the roadway that actually fell in has been redone and realigned since. But there's no lingering issues preventing us from issuing a COC.
Okie doke. So do I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for the Highfields?
I'll recuse myself since I'm
All
a
right.
butter.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to issue certificate of compliance for it just says Highfields Old Upton Road.
Yep.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Travis is abstaining. So, Patrick?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
I am also a yes, so the motion carries. Next up is request for certificate of compliance for Craftsman's Village, 123 and 125 Ferry Street.
This one was for drainage improvements for that development. I consulted with Jeff on this. We do have an as-built plan and everything's in order. They will be coming back for the order for the actual housing development, but this one's just for the separate drainage project. And so I recommend issuing this COC.
Okay. Having heard that, do I have a motion?
I'll move to issue the certificate of compliance for Craftsman Village.
Second. There
I
you
get a
go.
motion in a second. We'll do a roll call vote. I think this is going to be a long night with the cat. So roll call vote. Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Any other action items?
Not right now. We have all three of our hearings tonight, though, are continuances, so we don't have any specific times.
Okay. Just for courtesy, is everyone in attendance for all of these? And I'll start at the top. If not, we can always move down if there's any of the applicants are not present. I know that's, you gotta,
It looks like we could take any. I see folks from all of them.
okay, so we'll start at the top. This sheet here. Okay. All right. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of a warehouse at 12 Centennial Drive, 36R Nelson Street, 83 Westboro Road, 105 and 105R Westboro Road. And who's here to speak to this?
Hi, good evening, John Perry from Langen Engineering on behalf of the applicant.
All right, you have the floor.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. So we were issued a draft order of conditions last week. We reviewed that. Leah sent you some comments on that earlier today. And we have at this point received a clean letter from Graves Engineering for all stormwater items. And so we were looking to, I guess, review those comments that we sent over earlier.
Okay.
Answer any outstanding questions you may have, and hope to get resolution on the order.
All right, thanks. Leah, anything to add to that?
We don't have to get into great detail, but if you could just give us a quick update on where you stand with planning regarding parking, just so we can like feel out if that might have a change to the design or not. That's really the only lingering thing that might change what we've been looking at.
Yep. So we've been meeting with planning on Thursday afternoon to discuss the parking, and what Lee's referring to is just resolving the manner in which we're calculating the weighted average for the parking, since part of the buildings in Grafton, part of the buildings in Shrewsbury, and each town has different parking requirements. In Grafton, we had proposed some reserve parking spaces to meet the requirement essentially. So we're trying to resolve that before we meet with planning board next time. I don't anticipate that our discussion will alter the plans in any way. And obviously if it did, we had, a significant change, we'd have to come back before you, but I do not anticipate that it will alter the plans at all.
Okay, we'll go back and we'll start reviewing the conditions and so forth and get to that point. It is up to the applicant whether or not you look to having another, to extend to the next meeting, depending upon what happens with the planning board. Obviously, you know that if we then approve it and then we have to, reopen the hearing, there may be a process where we, depending upon what those changes are, you may have to go back to the beginning. So I will leave it up to you as the applicant, as that's your right, on whether or not you're comfortable enough. It's not my call, it's your call. So we can talk about that later.
Yep, no,
All right.
we'd like to proceed.
Okay, absolutely fine. Leah, you want to go through your draft conditions and also the comments and the responses that we've got back from the applicant?
Sure. Did you guys want to do waiver requests first or the draft conditions?
Let's go through the waiver request first. And
Okay.
then, yeah,
So they have three. One for exceeding 5 acres of disturbance. We've talked through that the cuts and fills can't be segmented easily. And we do have a graphic we can refer to in our findings showing those cuts and fills. So that's the first one under the stormwater bylaw. The second and third are under the wetlands bylaw. One to work within the no disturb of the IVW and ILSF that they need to fill and replicate. And the third is to exceed 5,000 square feet of impacts to that bylaw jurisdictional IVW ILSF.
okay. So why don't we start with the first one for the 5 acres? I know that we've had a lot of conversation on that. One thing I just want to note is that Patrick, you're not able to vote on this one just based on attendance. So it'll be voting members will be myself, Travis, and Jonathan. Thank you for the reminder, Leah. So let's just kind of take a quick look at the you said as the cut and fills, as far as do we have that PDF handy so that we can then make a finding, or do you think we need to do that?
I didn't have Jan queue it up in the background.
Okay,
I'll leave
That-
it to her if she thinks she can find it quick, but it was the pink and green
Yep.
overlay on the site that we had up a few meetings ago.
And if you have our most current set of plans from, there's a sheet in there called, I think it's CG 300, I believe. I'm trying to find it on my screen here, which should be that plan, sequencing plan.
So I'll go around to the commissioners while Jan, you're looking for that, and just to ask if anyone has any more specific questions specifically on this waiver, um, basically dealing with the 5 acres of disturbance and our, okay, there we go. So let's go around. Jonathan, anything else to add to, this waiver request?
So that it's because you're using the cut to dump it to fill, and you need to have all that area open that we're requesting this waiver, correct? That's the gist of it. So we can't do it in smaller sections.
I'll
That's
go to the
essentially,
app. Yeah.
sorry, that's
I
essentially
was,
correct.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I'll let the applicant answer that. And I think it's important to note that it's not like you're doing 2 or 3 feet of cut. It's
Right.
a pretty substantial amount of cut and a very substantial amount of fill. Just curious, so I know you only have one section up here. Is the site generally balanced, or is there, or is it an export or fill site?
It is generally balanced. We expect there may be some rock to export offsite, just because of the fluff factor when you
Blast.
have, blast and have rock, but we've designed it to be essentially balanced.
Okay.
I don't have any specific questions, Sandy. I think that it makes sense based on the size of the site and what they're doing, so they're not, only opening up areas and small pieces at a time. Do we require them to do any specific, is it part of the order of conditions to do any specific erosion control because of the sheer size of it as part of that waiver? Or is that something we might get into with the actual conditions? If we're opening, are you going to open this whole area up at once, I guess is the question to the applicant. And if so, do we require as the commission any, you know,
Wattles, silt fence, intermediary things that might be above and beyond different pieces of the requirements that fit because you're using the waiver, because you're opening up more than the typical. So I guess
So
that's
just,
your
yeah,
question.
so from the commissioner's standpoint, the short answer to that is absolutely, there are different conditions, and we'll get into those too. So to me is, you know, obviously the amount of area exposed always increases potential for issues depending upon the storms. In that, um, we talked a lot about what other things, when we get to the conditions. That's kind of a key thing in, you know, this is subject to, you know, a general construction permit under the EPA, so they'll have a SWIP. They'll need to follow that. And but bottom line is yeah, you have to. This is not a house lot. You're going to have a very active erosion control, and that's just something that we'll have to check on. And Leah, please tell me if I'm right. We also will have our consultants doing site visits just so that we keep on top of that.
Correct.
So so Jonathan, that's like the big one, is that,
Mhm.
you know, is that they've agreed to have our civil consultant, you know, go out and take a look at it just to make sure nothing's getting, you know, out of whack and so forth. Way too close to the wetlands and I don't know, just back to the applicant. I don't need exact numbers, order of magnitude of how many tens of thousands of cubic feet that's being moved. Cubic yards. Let's use cubic yards.
Well,
Just give
again,
me
it's,
one number or the other. Yeah.
yeah, all said and done, we're moving, you know, close to 1 million cubic
Okay.
yards in the site, you know, between cutting and filling. Again, it is fairly balanced, so everything, I wouldn't say everything, but essentially everything will be staying on site. And just to add to what you were mentioning a minute ago with the erosion controls, just as a reminder to the commission, we did, you know, present the sequencing plan that, I think if you go back one slide on this, maybe that sequencing plan, we talked about trying to limit, you know, sequencing the site in order to limit opening the site to the extent we can. And then we did add more notes, more requirements for the contractor for more robust erosion control. And some of that's discussed in the draft order as well.
Okay, that's very helpful. I appreciate that. I guess the only question that I'd have remaining would be if our third party is going out there, if Leah or Jan or whoever's visiting the site and the erosion controller, something's out of whack, what's the response of that? So would that be going directly to the superintendent or the foreman or whoever's, or is it? I've seen these things take time in other projects where they have to go up. Someone has to authorize someone to go out and spend money to adjust something because it's out of whack. So I want to make sure that if the erosion control is not properly put in and we've got a hurricane that's going to bear down or a significant storm and we're doing an inspection and something's awry, is there a timeline and or a flow that says the superintendent or whoever has the ability to fix it within 24 hours or whatever the typical time frame is because of an oncoming storm or just a concern that a rain event is going to wash out some other area of the site?
So there's a couple things just by law and so forth. You know, bottom line is that unfortunately doing it ahead of something happening is sometimes difficult. But
Mhm.
if something does happen, we have some pretty robust things and people to bring into. But the whole idea of having, you know, someone on site there and doing it, and then, you know, we'll have to have a contact person. Obviously, they bring it up with that, and then it's, you know, their response is they're responsible for it. But, you know, ultimately, if they're not responding, you know, and again, I get your point. To me, it's two different things. You kind of have your regular type of, you know, construction process, and you don't have quote unquote large storms coming, you know, maybe a half inch or an inch. that still can, on a site like this, cause a lot of issues. You know, you have that ongoing stuff. And then as far as, you know, a large storm event, obviously we would probably want to arrange it so that, you know, we notify them, they let us know what's going on, and then be out there right afterwards too. I mean, this is, yeah, it's as much as we can do to, you know, motivate the applicant, and they have their own self motivation motives to make sure that they don't run into that problem. But the whole idea is to be consistent with it. Make sure that they're always keeping up, not just in ahead of a big quote hurricane storm, because some of the worst erosion you'll have is the nice little you know, thunderstorm that comes out of nowhere and dumps 3/4 or an inch of rain in 20 minutes. That's
Sure.
the ones that really catch you off guard. So they should be ready all the time. But
Understood. Yeah, I've seen it before where it takes quite a bit of effort to get someone to react to something. So again, I'm not sure what our jurisdiction where that stops, or we're simply reminding them and telling them that there's a problem, and then it's their job to address it, and then it's our job to go and check to see if it's addressed, and if it's not, then what the process is like. Because it is a very big site. It's going to be, if you're moving that much dirt, you're going to have this area open for quite a bit of time.
absolutely, totally agree. And you know, typical procedures, you know, leaving, you know, discussing before you leave the site, follow up with a, you know, for, you know, a letter from our peer and so forth, just to notify them. And ultimately, if it's ongoing and no compliance, you shut the project down. And that's just the process. It doesn't get to there as quick as maybe some people would like, but that's the ultimate one. So, so we do have some tricks in the tool bag.
Some vehicles in there. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't have any other questions or comments on the disturbance.
Okay. Travis,
No, nothing else on this.
uh, i- in Patrick, although you can't vote, if you do have any comments, please feel free to give them.
None for me at the moment. Thank you, though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we've gone through this. Obviously, we want the applicant to be proactive. And when we'll discuss more of this on some of the actual conditions about allowing having a, you know, one of our peers go out and actually be able to visit the site, just to kind of avoid any issues. Based on that, Leah, anything else to add?
Sorry, I was muted. Nothing
okay.
more for that waiver.
Okay, and the applicant, I'll let you give any kind of final thoughts on this. I would like to open this up to the public. I mean, just so the public understands, we've gotten a lot of information on this project, and obviously we've had a lot of discussions if you happen to be at these hearings, and obviously we're at the point where um, we're going over the conditions, basically the rules of how they have to construct this. And we're doing this under, you know, obviously the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act, the local wetlands bylaw, and the stormwater bylaw for Grafton. So if Jan, just keep an eye on any kind of public attendees. If they have certain questions, please raise their hand. At this point, what we're going to do is move on and actually have a motion to approve the waiver. And this particular waiver is strictly for exceeding 5 acres of disturbance, which is under our local bylaw regs. So do I have a motion to grant the waiver as discussed?
I'll move to grant the waiver for exceeding 5 acres of disturbance per the stormwater bylaw.
And do I have
Second.
we got a motion and a second? I'll do one quick round just to make sure no one else has anything to add to this. Travis,
Nope.
Jonathan,
Nope.
and Patrick.
No.
Okay. And then we'll do now I've lost my train of thought. So we have a motion and a second. So we'll have the voting members vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I am also a yes. That motion carries for that waiver. And Jan, if anyone pops up from the public, please let us know and we'll have them come on. So next one. Next waiver is work within the no disturb zone. And this is under the bylaw. Leah, anything to add to this?
Nope.
And again, this has that small area that's being relocated. Okay, go through the commissioners to see if anyone has a specific comment or question on this. Travis.
Are we talking about the wetland mitigation that was proposed in the middle of a storm basin?
Yeah. So yeah, so originally they had it, it's underneath the parking. It's an existing depression that falls under our local regulations. It's not jurisdictional in the state. And they originally were going to put it inside a basin and now it's not. It's
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't find the updated plans. The old ones, I think, were
Yeah.
still showing up. So
Okay. Yeah, this
nothing else from me.
okay. Jonathan,
I don't have any other questions or comments.
Patrick, any questions?
No.
Okay, I have no additional questions on this. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to. My computer froze. There it goes. Move to grant a waiver for work within the no disturb.
In a second.
Second.
A motion in a second. I have one quick question. Leah, as far as a finding, do we need to state that as part of the motion?
We don't always, but I was gonna say due to the proposed wetland mitigation plan.
Okay, that's, you know, as far as, yeah, based on the discussion and the fact that it was relocated to provide I'll just call it a higher value location, not in the stormwater system, so. Okay, we have a motion in a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. And then the last waiver is to exceed the 5,000 square foot impacts to the bylaw. This is again along the same isolated vegetated wetlands, isolated land subject to flooding area, associated with the previous waiver, and this one is just the size of it. I'll go quickly around and see if anyone has any comments. Travis?
This is just for the impacts.
Yep, it's the size of it, yes.
All right. No, nothing else.
Jonathan?
Nope.
Patrick?
No.
Okay. So do I have I'm sorry, do I have a motion on this unless we already did it? Someone can tell me that we already went through it.
Didn't do this one yet, right?
No, we didn't.
Okay, thank you. It's been a very long day.
For
So,
VC1, section
Yep.
VC1.
yep, so can I have a
So-
motion?
Are there any findings before we do that
I think it
associated
had,
with this waiver?
yeah, I think it has to do the same one that Leah just mentioned for the previous one.
Right, yep, I was gonna use the same one.
So I'll move to grant a waiver for the impacts as discussed with with the findings as described by the agent.
Second.
We got a motion in a second.
Does that work, Jan?
It works for me. I mean, it's
All
just, it's been a long process here, so. Okay, roll call vote.
She smiled. That she's good with it,
Oh,
I think. That's
Okay.
Okay.
See it.
Works for me.
All right, Travis,
I'm a yes.
Jonathan,
yes.
I am also a yes, that motion carries and the waiver is granted. apologize to the applicant. It has been an extremely long day for me. So it's just getting to the fun part. So, which is always the most fun to do, is review conditions. All right, Leah, I'm going to turn it back over to you about going through the draft conditions
Sure.
and what the comments were from the applicant, and so we can discuss them.
Okay, I'm just gonna go through until I either have a question or you guys can stop me. Does
Sounds
that
good.
work? Okay.
That works great.
So for findings at the top, I have that the wetland resource areas west of Summit Brook Pond on certain sheets were not reviewed and confirmed under this order, but everything else was by Ecotech. Number 2 is that isolated wetland and isolated land subject to flooding to be filled and replicated is only jurisdictional under our bylaw, not the act. The third finding just lists the impacts out, so we have those numbers. And the fourth finding is after consultation with our peer reviewer, the commission is in agreement with the applicant's assessment of the extent of riverfront area on site in relation to the beaver impoundment. We talked about that one quite a while ago.
Okay.
Next section are the waivers that we just went through. And then we go to general conditions from there. I have number 1 highlighted just because, as you can see, if you go back to my agent report for a second, we will just need like a final stamped plan set, both electronic and hard copy, that incorporate a lot of things that we have talked about piecemeal and slide decks and revisions to peer reviewers, and all that needs to come back together into one final set that I can then refer to in number 1.
And one other important part that you indicated in your report is you need to take off anything that says preliminary, not for construction. These plans are for construction as
Yeah.
far as we're concerned.
Thank you for that part. So if we keep going, number 2 talks about if they need to change their plans at all, they'll come back to us and we'll figure out if it's a minor change or an amendment, etc. Third, we reserve the right to add additional conditions if we need to enforce our regulations. Number 4 is that this order will be in all their contracts, subcontracts, and specs, so that everyone on the team knows what's going on. Number 5, they will keep a copy of the order and the approved plans on site at all times. 6, work will be halted on site if anyone finds them not in compliance. 7 starts to talk about the porous pavement. The installer must have a minimum of 3 years of experience installing porous pavement. Before installation, we'll want a letter verifying that experience, and the system will be installed in accordance with UNH's Stormwater Center specs.
Okay, so why don't we just take a pause here and I'll go to
Sure.
the applicant. Is there any kind of comments or questions on these conditions so far?
No, these are okay.
Okay, cool. All right, back to you, Leah.
Okay, then we get into prior to commencement of work. Number 8, they'll record the documents at the registry. Number 9, they'll put up their permit number sign on site. 10, we're asking for a bond for erosion control, site stabilization, wetland replication, and stormwater management. They go get an estimate of what it would take to cover that work. We send that estimate to our peer reviewer. Once we agree on that amount, then they go solidify the bond, which we hand over to the treasurer collector to hold on to. Number 11, we'll want a signed illicit discharge statement. 12, we'll want a copy of the SWIP. 13, erosion control will be installed where they show on their plans. Those along the perimeter will serve as the limit of disturbance. There is more to come about erosion control, by the way. 14.
Can I just say one thing on
Yeah.
13 as far as the wording goes? Prior to commencement work, the erosion control shall be installed where indicated on the above referenced plans. Just to add in there that this is the minimum amount of erosion control,
Okay.
and site conditions may warrant more erosion control. It's just it's very specific, is that just because they show certain things on perimeter That does not mean they don't have to do something internal. Again, it's just the erosion control plan is a static thing that you see once, but it changes every single week out there. So they need to keep up with it. So thank you on that one.
Sure. 14 is for the construction entrance. They will have two, one on our side, one on the Shrewsbury side. 15 talks about them designating a staging area outside of resource areas and buffer zones. And then I had all construction trailers, dumpsters, portable sanitary facilities, material storage and overnight parking would be in that area. The perimeter would have erosion control around it. The ground would be protected for spills. Any spills would be cleaned up. Any fueling would happen there, and we would be notified if there were any spills. The applicant's team is proposing striking through material storage and overnight parking. And their comment was that those may be located outside of the staging area, but that they will be outside of any resource area buffer zones. I would be fine with that change if the commission is.
So I don't have any big issues with that. The only thing is that material storage is kind of a very broad thing. If it's kind of a inert or dry, all the construction equipment and all the construction materials is not a big problem. It's just, I was just trying to see if you have anything specific about fuel or any other kind of, I'll call it kind of dirty aspects of storage.
I only have that stuff called out in this
On all
condition
fuel and the
here.
equipment shall be okay, you got it. You got the last line. That's what I was looking for.
Okay,
Okay.
What's the buffer zone? Are we saying the 25-foot
The
buffer
100.
zone?
100 foot, and
Okay.
there's not a riverfront. It would be, yeah, but
right.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead, Leah. I'm good.
All right, 16, we're asking for funds for those construction period peer review inspections we talked about. So that'll be to look at wetland replication, stormwater infrastructure installation, and general compliance. And I added that we will coordinate the amount we need to hold and those inspection dates we can coordinate across Grafton and Shrewsbury because we're using the same peer reviewers. So we don't have to duplicate. Maybe we can get out there all at the same time.
Be a little bit more efficient. So back
That-
to the applicant. Anything so far within that section other than what we already discussed?
Nope. It's all
All
good.
right.
Okay.
Keep on going there, Leah. Doing a great job.
Thanks. Then we get into during construction. So construction equipment is prohibited beyond the perimeter erosion control barrier and delineated limit of disturbance. The 3 potential vernal pools identified on site within wetland systems A and M shall be submitted to NHESP under the vernal pool certification process. And the applicant will provide the associated documentation to both us and Shrewsbury Concom. I highlighted what the one in wetland system M. That system is fully in Shrewsbury, so I wasn't sure that we could necessarily call that out here. I know we're trying to coordinate and have some consistency across the 2 towns, but I didn't know how you guys felt about calling that one out. And then the applicant proposed a change to the language, just that this all happens before a COC is issued, which I'm okay with that part.
Yeah, my only question on that, what is the what's this construction schedule? Just a broad one, 18 months, 36 months.
Closer to 18 months.
Okay. And the only reason I'm asking is if it gets drawn out, then you're going to have more impacts to a vernal pool from all the, activity in the area. So we just want to make sure that it's done in a timely manner so that it hasn't been altered such that certain evidence isn't found. That's all. So the 18 months is not bad. And then Leah, to your point where you say M and M, I should say, and M, I would maybe put that in parentheses and just say within wetland system, there are 3 potential vernal pools identified on the site within Grafton. Is it 1 or 2 vernal pools in A?
There are 2, I think I think one itself is in Shrewsbury and the other is like on across the town line.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
And so I would just identify the two that are in Grafton and write them specifically, and then just add either in the parentheses or something else to indicate a third vernal pool is entirely within Shrewsbury, and we have coordinated with Shrewsbury Concom, and that they should refer to Shrewsbury Order of Conditions for certification of that one. So to what you're trying to do is to include it in our condition, but the authority is actually in Shrewsbury. So let's just reference that authority to them, as we can't actually require something in another town, but I think
Right.
we should mention it and reference
Okay.
it. So,
All right. 19, this was on a slide last time we talked, I think. They proposed some flush curbing in a few areas, to accommodate wildlife travel in the vicinity of, that wetland system, just to give a little, like, escape route for wildlife from the pavement.
okay,
20, the areas around the site perimeter intended for snow storage shall be graded to direct snow melt through the stormwater management system on site. 21, there are temporary sedimentation basins in areas near proposed permanent basins shall be constructed using lightweight equipment to prevent compaction and shall include sediment forebays with non-woven liners to prevent siltation of the subgrade upon site stabilization. The liner and all sediment will be removed, and the areas of the permanent basins will be tilled to loosen any compaction of the subgrade. Most of that was actually proposed by the applicant.
okay,
22 is, this gets more into the erosion control. So the erosion control measures will be maintained in good repair until all work is complete and all disturbed areas have been fully stabilized. The applicant shall hire a qualified erosion control monitor and shall provide their credentials and contact information to the commission. The monitor will inspect the erosion controls ahead daily, and they're proposing weekly, and work with the contractors to remove and properly dispose of any accumulated sediment and replace any components as necessary. The monitor shall coordinate with the contractor in advance of any forecasted rain events to ensure that the site is prepared to handle the event and shall provide inspection reports to the commission during and after any rain events greater than, they proposed ½ inch.
okay,
The applicant shall immediately control any erosion problems that occur. The applicant shall also provide the commission with the contact info for the contractor who is to be responsible for 24-hour responses to urgent matters on site. I'll
Okay.
pause there because I know that got very detailed.
okay. So, so a couple of things when you say the applicant shall hire a qualified erosion control monitor. So the EPA has a new credential for erosion control professionals. It's they've tried to standardize it. I'll go to the applicant. You must be familiar with that process now, with the certification through the EPA.
Yes.
Okay, so I would, and we can give you that information. So that would be one of the certifications or equal. So if they're under general construction permit under NIPD's, the person doing the inspections is supposed to have that certification already. So
Okay,
we just don't, yeah. And then as far as the weekly goes, the weekly to me is, I believe, is what is required under the general construction permit. So that is fine. And then as far as, that's on a regular basis. And then when there is a storm event greater than ½ inch, I want to say it's either ½ inch or 0.25 inches. Can't remember what it is in the general construction permit. But it's not, it's in the ballpark. So I don't think I have an issue with that. That's kind of my takes on it. I don't have a, um, as far as getting into any more detail. So let me go around. Travis, anything else?
On 22, no.
Okay. Patrick, any comments?
No.
Jonathan?
Do we define, and I'm sorry if I missed this, I see the 20, do we define how long a rain event is? Because again, if you get, is a rain event a day? Is a rain event 4 hours? Is a rain event, only because if you get back-to-back thunderstorms in a day and you get, 0.48 inches in each thunderstorm, then you've got basically just under an inch, and it could be very close together. And
Yep.
if it's half an inch in a rain event, the rain event's just that one thunderstorm, then you're not really, hypothetically, the contractor should be inspecting it anyway, but just making sure that the wording is proper, that we know what the rain event is and there's definition, and maybe there's a default definition we go back to. But just I guess a question for you, Sandy, and maybe to the applicant, or maybe it's to Leah if we have that defined somewhere else.
So in general terms, when you say with rain events, you say 24 hours. That is not a day. That's any period of time that's 24 hours.
Right.
To your point, you could get an event that lasts 48 hours, but it's all about within that period of time. So the 0.5 inches could happen Saturday to Saturday night till Sunday morning. That's
Got it.
as long as it within 24 hours. When you look at the different government websites that NOAA and other things that track it, you will notice that they all, even though they show it by day, but it's all based on the 24-hour storm, depending upon how they're looking at it. But yeah, so that's pretty standard. I don't think that needs to be more defined.
Fine. I didn't know the definition was a day. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour period. It's and sometimes, and again, not to get too much in the weeds. I mean, if you've had a really wet spring or summer and you get a tenth of an inch of rain, you could create a problem. It's just, it varies on the conditions, but this is, within the reasonable standard of saying, hey, if it rains hard, go out and look.
Right.
And or if you've got an extended period of rain within 24 hours, you got to go take a look. So
As someone that lives in North Grafton, I'm very aware of how when it rains, it doesn't really it doesn't percolate very well in the soils in my area. So, yeah.
okay, I'm a little paranoid. My stuff infiltrates really well, but then I looked for that too. So, but that's just the civil engineer in me. So
Sure. But no, that answers the question. So I don't have anything else for that.
okay, yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think that's it. Good, Leah.
Sorry, muted again.
That's okay.
23, the applicant will maintain an adequate and easily accessible supply of any erosion control materials for emergencies or replacement. 24, loaming and seeding shall occur within 7 days of final grading. If any disturbed portion of the site is inactive for more than 14 days, it has to be stabilized by seeding with a temporary mix, unless the 14 days are in the winter. If it's in the winter, the applicant shall request a determination from the commission as to whether seeding or an alternate measure should be conducted. 25, materials shall not be stockpiled within the 100-foot buffer zone. Soil stockpiles must be stabilized or covered at the end of each workday. Stockpile side slopes shall not be greater than 2:1, and stockpiles shall be surrounded by erosion control barriers. They are proposing striking through the middle of that, and they have stockpiles that are not actively used for 14 days or longer shall be stabilized or covered.
So I can tell you that that suggestion comes right out of the the general construction permit that is done through NIPDES, because that's it. If it's an active pile, it's active. If it sits there for more than 14 days, it has to be stabilized or covered. So that's standard. That's already going to be required on site. So the question is, um, at the end of each workday, that's kind of a lot. I think, you know, maybe one alternative probably should be, stockpiles of these soil stockpiles must be stabilized or covered um, after, or prior to any, rainfall event. But after each day, I think is a little bit, it's not common, I guess, is I'll say it that way. But the intent is we don't want something to happen overnight and have half your, with this amount of soil being moved, those stockpiles are going to be huge. Anything you think of, you've seen on a site now, on this site uh, is going to far exceed that. So that would be my thing is that you have greater risk just because you have a lot more stockpiles.
Right.
Um,
So
so
do
no-
you want me to add what you said?
So let's just kind of go back to the applicant. And so we want something that's going to be done, but in the 14 days, I understand is already a requirement. It's, and I have no problem reiterating it in our conditions, but the whole idea of, maybe you can talk a little bit about as far as your standards, if you have any limits on how big the stockpiles are or how steep they are, and whether and what you would typically do when you have rain coming as far as your stockpiles go.
Yeah, so I guess the main intent here, and you mentioned it before, is it's not really feasible to cover the stockpiles at the end of each day. We'll have multiple stockpiles on site. Some will be rock, some will be, aggregate we're processing, some might be topsoil. Each are different in nature. There is a condition there that stockpiles will be surrounded by an erosion control barrier. So typically, you're going to have your perimeter controls, your intermediate controls, other processes that the contractor's implementing to generally manage site erosion, and then the stockpile will be surrounded itself as well. So if you do have some, runoff from the stockpile, that'll get captured at the base essentially. So that's how we'd like the condition to read. Ultimately it's it's up to us to make sure there are no issues.
So, and typically I would say when you have 20, 30 foot high pile and you got erosion control around the bottom, and if it's either a single or double row, you have a potential of doing this, having seen a lot of stockpiles wash out. It has to do with the size of the volume of that stockpile is how well that erosion control works. So it becomes it's less of saying you should have a double roll of hay bales, or maybe go with a combination of hay bales, silt fence, or even you know uh, having various types of silt fence. But it really comes down to how big that stockpile is, and I don't care what erosion control you have at the bottom of it. If it's a really big enough size stockpile and it rains, you're not going to hold it. So it's a management thing. I get it, but it's still contractors, sometimes like to, have the most efficient thing, and maybe that's one very, very large pile. So I'm just
I
trying
think
to think something that would be more general that would say you can't just make this huge pile and put a row of hay bales around it.
what if we had something at the end after the last sentence that said something like additional erosion controls may be required either by the commission or the erosion control monitor on a kind of a case by case basis.
I think that would give us some of the things, because if we do have a peer review there and they go out there and they see a pile that's an acre big, I mean, let's face it, the size of the site, that's not going to be outrageous. And and that's when you need the extra erosion control. So Leah, I think that's a good, since we do have someone going out there and looking at it, and they can monitor and plus the, the applicant also has a monitor out there that if the pile gets too big, that's one example, but that's, that additional erosion control can be added around stockpiles if deemed necessary.
Okay. And are we fine striking through completely the slope?
Yeah, because the type of soil is going to dictate what the side slope is.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, if it's really steep, it'll, soil will find its own kind of slope level, but if it rains, steeper it is, it has more velocity. But again, it can be a 3-to-1, and if it's a big enough pile, that can also contribute to it too. So, and if it's an active pile, you're always going to have slopes more than 2-to-1. That's just construction site. But
Okay. Keep going.
certainly,
26, any excess fill not reused on site shall be removed of the site and properly disposed of. 27, plants listed on the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources prohibited plant list are prohibited on site. Any fill brought on.
one
Sure.
quick add. This is just go up on the, properly disposed of per local, state, and federal requirements.
Okay.
Cool. Keep on going.
Any fill brought on site must be clean, debris-free, and devoid of invasive plants or their parts or seeds. 29 gets into the wetland replication. It will be performed as specified in the approved plan. We reserve the right to require additional plantings to achieve 75% cover within 2 growing seasons. Preparation and planting of the replication area shall be completed in conjunction with or as soon as is practicable following the alteration of the wetlands that are being replaced. I had, but in no event later than 30 days after the alteration. They're proposing striking through that, and I'll pause here.
Yeah, I think it's, I'd rather leave that sentence there, but give them, and just say, if the applicant is unable to do, to accomplish this within the 30 days, they shall, let the commission know, and they need to come up with a schedule. So it's more than just, no, you can't do it. Well, if you can't do it, you got to tell us, how you are going to do it and the timing of it.
If I may, the reason we wanted to strike that specific sentence was the filling of the isolated area is going to occur pretty early in the earthwork process. And obviously we'll have an active construction site for, quite a while, and don't think it's feasible to get all of the fine grading and plantings completed in the replication area that early in the process. There's a provision, I think down lower, maybe it's number 34, about replicating the volume of the ILSF, which is fine, we can do that. But we were, anticipating leaving the fine grading and planting and establishment period to a little bit later in the project.
So why don't we do a different approach? Sometimes these things get left to the very end, and they don't always turn out great. So why don't we, instead of saying, but in the event of, no later than 30 days, is that the applicant shall submit a a plan and schedule of when each of the, when the area will be excavated slash planted and so forth, so that we have a schedule to go by and we should know when it's done. And I'm not looking for any kind of big long report. I'm looking for just the basics of when you can get to it and so forth, and submit that for approval. And that would be more of a staff as opposed to having to come back in front of the commission, and it would be more just if it's reasonable and so forth. And I would suggest putting in the reasons why from a schedule standpoint. That's what is, again, what we're looking for is the best outcome. So that's what's driving us. Leah, does
Yeah.
that sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that works for us.
So I kind of stop and just go around to the commissioners and see if anyone's had anything that and always feel free to chime in if you want to, but anything else on these, Jonathan?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Travis,
No, nothing else.
Patrick.
No.
Okay. Keep on going, Leah.
All right, 29B, once wetland alteration has commenced, no other work is to be commenced on site until establishment of the replication area is completed. I think based on what we were just
Yep.
talking about, we need to strike B entirely.
Yep. And again, what we're talking about is that one isolated area, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
C, erosion control will be installed between the existing wetland and the replication area before work commencing on the replication area. No work, disturbance, or clearing is permitted within the adjacent existing wetland. D, everything will be supervised by a qualified wetland scientist hired by the commission at the applicant's expense. Replication area will be inspected by that scientist at the end of each growing season for a minimum of 2 seasons, and we will get written reports. Once completed, the replication area will have a no disturb buffer zone around it. I worded this as up to the adjacent approved limit of work
Gotcha.
because it isn't always 25 feet.
Yep. Understood.
And during the monitoring period, any invasive species in the replication area and its no disturb zone will be eradicated. 30, compensatory flood storage shall be constructed prior to any filling of land subject to flooding. 31, I had any work occurring within wetland resource areas shall occur during dry conditions. They are proposing striking through that condition.
I'll go the applicant. Why? Seems reasonable.
So the only work we have within the wetland resource area is the filling of that small ILSF area. And that's more likely going to be in the springtime or late winter. And, in my experience, the dry season, dry conditions would be, referring to summertime. And
Yeah.
maybe we need to clarify that portion of it.
So it kind of an alternate way of doing it, and I understand it's that one location, is to this is New England. This is we're experiencing climate change. You could have dry conditions all through the spring, and then not have any of it during the summer. It's more based on that. So Leah, as far as this goes, is it? I'm just trying to think of an alternative way of doing this, but
Right. It's really just, it's mostly to avoid a big mess, right?
yeah.
Well, and I guess if there was standing water in the depression too, we would propose to dewater it so that we're not making a mess, dewatering in conformance with
Then maybe,
dewatering plans and IFDs and everything like that.
then maybe we can add that, keep this in, but add like during dry conditions or dewatered conditions.
Well, you can say any work occurring within the wetland resource area shall occur during dry conditions. And a dry condition maybe, you know, doesn't have to be any specific time. To your point, it's not meant to be only in the summer, only in the spring. It's more like, you know, a dry condition if it's been dry for 2 months or something, you know, that's it. Or to your point, Leah, or you know, or provide appropriate dewatering um, for work to commence.
Yeah, we'd be okay with keeping that condition in there if we had another sentence about the ability to dewatering it.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yes, ma'am.
32, all work shall be, I had phased, they want to change it to sequenced, which is fine. According to the approved plans referenced above, previously disturbed areas must be stabilized with permanent or temporary measures prior to the disturbance of additional areas. Any slopes greater than 2:1 shall be stabilized with erosion control matting. Any slopes greater than 3:1 will be stabilized with tackifier and seeding. Are you guys okay with that one word
Yeah.
change?
I think it matches with the plan, so that's fine.
Okay. 33, perchlorate blasting agents shall not be used in connection with this project. 34, I was having a hard time figuring out how to word this. So usually, if a project's gonna be in close proximity to a vernal pool, we might apply like timing restrictions, for that migration season for the amphibians. For example, we did this on Woodland Hill, which was previously called Village at Institute Road. We had certain lots that were really close to the vernal pools, so we put timing restrictions on activity on those lots. I couldn't really figure out a way to get the wording to work, given the sequencing they need to have happen on site, and also it was hard to call out like the work adjacent to the vernal pool because it's kind of just, you know, a big parking lot and a big building. But I didn't know if the commission had any ideas if you wanted to keep the intent of that in there.
So kind of instead of identifying it, you could identify it as the limit of the you know, any areas of disturbance. So you're not calling out one thing and have it a certain distance from the vernal pool. And you know, that should be obviously they're going to go through and identify these vernal pools, do the appropriate, you know, analysis to actually get it certified, depending upon, you know, the species in the vernal pool. It's kind of what's going to happen. As far as where's the right place to yeah, see, this is in conflict with like not getting the vernal pools done ahead of time or not having the study done.
Well, the
Okay.
study actually is done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I guess going back to the comment earlier about, you know, is it 18 months for construction and adding in the sentence about specifying that it would be done before certificate of compliance. We may do it, you know, earlier in the process. I just wanted to make sure we had some sort of backstop on the timing for that. So the study,
Yeah.
but getting back to I guess my main point, the study actually is done. Epsilon, our wetland scientists, did complete the vernal pool study
Okay.
in the appropriate time frame last spring.
Yep.
So we do have that information at hand, and you know we'd definitely be okay with having our wetland scientists on site and having, you know, your wetland consultant with the agent on site occasionally to coordinate, you know, work around the vernal pools, so we can work that type of language into this condition.
So what about Leah? Kind of, you know, prior to commencement of work, the applicant shall submit a plan for protection of the vernal pools, during, the sensitive, timing of it, sensitivity near the vernal pools and the migration of the amphibians, and just so that they can come up with a plan that can get reviewed so that there's a plan in place. So when, it can be more of a, based on the, experts both on the applicant side, but also the peer reviewers for the commission also. And that, yeah, I mean, put it on the applicant to come up with the timing based on the schedule. Put it on the applicant to come up with a plan to protect it during construction, and let our peer reviewer review their expert opinion on what they think it is, and then have our peer reviewer review that.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say we would have the applicant submit a plan for protection of the vernal pools. And then
Yep.
could we call out during the vernal pool seasons with the dates that
Oh,
we often
absolutely.
use?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then that plan, we will go to Art and have him check.
Yep, just to make sure it's reasonable and so forth. Yep.
Okay, and is everyone okay leaving the latter part? The commission may require the applicant to work within specific time periods in this area. And the commission may also impose additional conditions on the installation of erosion control in that area, just as possibilities. Or do we need to change that as well?
I think that's fine. It's really, that would be really dependent upon, what our peer reviewer sees as, and when we talk about erosion control, you're talking about giving, the amphibians a place, a way to get out. So there's ways to do that. And I'd rather have, someone who's a vernal pool expert saying these are the ways that you can do it.
Okay. Moving on.
Yes.
Where erosion control has been placed between uplands and vernal pools, exposed soils are to be stabilized, and silt fencing or other devices that could block migration of amphibians to and from the pools is to be removed no later than March 1 if construction has been occurring during the winter, and no later than September 1 if construction has been occurring during the summer. If soils will not be stabilized by these dates, temporary stabilization measures shall be installed, and sedimentation barriers shall be designed to provide a gradual slope or berm over which amphibians may pass. Erosion control devices shall not block passage between uplands and vernal pools between the dates of March 1 and June 1, nor between September 1 and October 15. Do we forego this entirely because we're asking them to come up with a plan in 34? Or do we keep?
I would
Oh.
keep it and let them, and if there's some disagreement or something, but those are standards, that these are not, I know it's weather dependent. The March 1st is not explicitly March 1st, but again, it's the standard that's done.
Okay.
It is weather dependent though, so, okay.
And we reviewed this internally too, and understand that we'll need to work with you and your peer consultant on specific, processes for working around the vernal pools, and thought that this condition was a good condition, and it also left it, it has some good detail, but also leaves it workable for, general enough that we can adjust the plan as needed.
Okay. 36 is lining the catch basins with silt sacks or equivalent product. Maintain them and regularly clean them out. Take them out at final stabilization. 37 is keeping the streets clean by sweeping any sediment trapped onto the adjacent street at the end of each workday. Any construction vehicles exiting the property shall be cleaned of soil prior to traveling on the roads in Grafton. All equipment washing shall occur within the designated staging area. Any runoff from the washing of trucks or equipment shall not be directed toward nor dumped into any on-site drainage system or area subject to protection under the act or the bylaw. They'll need an impervious concrete washout structure outside of all resource areas and buffer zones, including signage labeling the structure as the concrete washout area. This is the only location on site where concrete trucks and tools are permitted to be rinsed. All materials deposited within the washout must be legally disposed of off-site. They're proposing a couple changes. One, the addition of in accordance with the approved plans. And two, a strike through on the last sentence. And they have no concrete for reuse shall be placed in the wetland buffers.
Right. Can you
And if I-
explain that change? Yeah.
Yeah, if I may, we're not planning to, import any concrete for reuse, certainly, but rather than truck off, concrete washout, it's common practice that we would blend that into material for reuse. And it's going to be, in our opinion, a very, in the grand scheme of things, minute amount. But as that's blended with the processed material on site, that's our preference.
What do you mean by material?
So,
Like, what's
so
it going to
in
be? Going to be mixed with other concrete?
No, so it will essentially in the washout structure, it'll be a pit that's dug, lined with a
Yeah.
membrane, and after the concrete truck has come and dropped its load, it'll hose out, wash out in that area, and we would propose to crush that material, that concrete, and blend it in with aggregate on site for reuse.
Once it's dry.
Once it's dry, correct.
Never heard of that. I'll defer to Sandy though on that one.
Yeah. If you think of what goes into concrete and the fact it becomes generally a hardened material.
I've just never heard of reusing concrete washout. That's all.
Yeah.
As long as it's dry, that's the thing.
Right. Yeah. And as long as
Otherwise,
there's
there'd be no point in the.
as long as there's
washout.
no funky additives or anything, there's a lot of concrete and you can reuse it and so forth. So long as it doesn't, isn't, follows all of the state regulations as far as concrete reuse, then I don't have a problem. And this isn't, again, and the adding of, reuse shall, no concrete for reuse shall be placed in the wetland buffers. So when you have 30 or 40 feet of fill that you're putting in certain locations, and you're taking concrete that is hardened, it's just another aggregate and so forth. So, but I
Can
don't
we-
have a huge issue with this.
Can we just add the word dry to the beginning? No dry concrete for reuse shall be placed in the wetland buffer.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I would just keep it as no concrete for reuse shall be placed in the wetland buffers. So there's nothing. I mean, the only place they're going to put it is outside the buffer.
Right, yeah,
So,
sorry.
no, that's okay.
So no concrete at all shall be placed within the wetland buffers.
Correct. So if they're
Not just
mixing
no
it for fill.
concrete for reuse. Is that
Well,
what we're saying?
Maybe
'Cause if
we should
there's
clarify
if
no
there's no
concrete.
issue with it, then
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say no, the intent is no concrete for aggregate reuse or fill reuse.
I think, yeah, the word fill reuse
Okay.
would be good. So, yeah, it's just like, it's not, to me, I have never heard of it being a significant impact. I mean, it's painted or something, but this is just raw concrete that hardens and so forth. But, and again, there are, when you look at concrete, the materials, further away, the better. So I think it's no concrete for fill reuse shall be placed within the wetland buffer.
Keep going.
Yes, ma'am.
39, if dewatering proves to be necessary, we'll want to see the dewatering plan. Dewatering will be monitored daily to ensure that sediment-laden water is appropriately settled prior to discharge. Water shall not be discharged directly into an area subject to jurisdiction of the act or the bylaw. Management of the groundwater and soil collected during excavation and dewatering shall be monitored by an LSP in accordance with DEP regs. And all excavated materials not reused on site shall be removed from the site and legally disposed of. 40, all erosion control will stay in place until the site is fully stabilized, but shall be removed prior to the issuance of a complete COC, at which time the permit number sign can come down as well. And they're proposing adding after, until the site is fully stabilized, they would like to add or as directed or authorized by the commission or their agent. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, if a portion of it can get taken down, yeah, I don't got a problem with that.
41, upon completion of construction, they'll contact me for a test of the porous pavement to make sure it functions as designed. The test consists of pouring water on the system at a rate of 5 gallons per minute, measuring the distance the water spreads across the surface of the system, and the rate of infiltration. Water should not spread further than 5 feet across the surface. The test will be performed at multiple locations on the system, and the system will be inspected for smearing and other indicators of improper installation. 42 is just how to request a certificate of compliance. Before I get into ongoing conditions, any other questions so far?
I have one quick question for the applicant, and just it's been a while since I looked at the plans. You don't have, it's an extremely large building, but you don't have any SOEs or anything that you need to do ahead of construction, do you?
No, not for the building.
Okay.
For the large retaining wall, there could be some ground improvements, but
Okay. And I'm just asking it, just thinking about all these things that we're talking about and just how that can change the flow of groundwater and so forth, depending upon how is construction. And SOE is supportive of excavation. It's just, there's all different types. And it's basically a big wall in the ground. So I'm just wondering if there's any significant, sometimes you can have them 40, 50 feet deep. There's all these different ramifications um, as far as groundwater and what it is and how things go. And I'm just asking just a general question. So, I mean, it's a flat building. It's on slab, right? Slab on
that's
grade.
right. That's right. Yeah.
So, okay. So, all right. That's just a little sidestep. So go ahead, Leah.
Okay, ongoing conditions, 43 sets up our 25-foot no disturb. 44 gets into signage for the no disturb. So our standard is that the signs will be placed no more than 20 feet apart at a minimum of 4 inches in diameter, rugged weather resistant material, mounted on a steel post at a height of 1 to 5 feet above the ground, with a minimum of 24 inches of the post buried below the ground, with the words protected no disturb wetland buffer on the signs. They are proposing instead of at intervals no more than 20 feet apart, actually not instead of, in addition to, they want to add along the areas depicted on the approved site plans. And then they provide a markup of the plan that, if Jan, you can switch over to that, we can look at where they are proposing to put the signage. Jan loves it when I don't tell her ahead of time what to have ready.
She's cursing you right now.
I can usually guess, but sometimes I'm thrown off. Let's see. Should be coming up.
So it'll probably just take a second to load, but they did mark out proposed locations for the no disturb signs. So the two orange lines would put signage around those wetlands. The northeastern one is entirely in Shrewsbury.
Gotcha.
The more central one is a little bit over the town line, but mostly in Grafton. But
Okay.
I will add that you can see that that wetland system continues all the way around the next couple of basins, and then off the very back of the site.
Yeah.
Actually 3 basins back there. So I don't know that we need to have the signs like out, you know, at the wood line behind basins, but I would maybe want to add some kind of where the wetland continues to wrap around what's gonna be like truck parking and stuff like that. Because we're just trying to protect from, I don't know, like landscaping crews and stuff like that, just dumping
Right.
stuff
So-
over the edge.
It would be helpful to, where the retaining wall is on the back side. Because that's a huge drop. But to Leah, to your point, where when you're looking at the central one where the orange is kind of coming around, you're talking about extending it further down. I'm just looking to see as far as the grading and what the vegetation and where the retaining walls are going to be.
Yeah.
Just so that, some of it may be just, sticking it on the retaining wall or something.
I guess another question too is there already like chain link fencing or something proposed at the
Right.
top of that wall anyway? And so then maybe we count that as it's already protected. So do we also need to mark it out with signage? I guess there might be a fair trade-off there.
Right. Yeah.
I can weigh in, give a little context if that's okay.
Yep.
The around the truck parking area, the entire warehouse truck parking area will have a secured perimeter fence around it. There'll be, 6-foot chain link fence around the entire area. So where we've proposed this orange line here is essentially where we thought it may be likely for, people or landscape crews to be, and certainly understand the intent of the signage and barrier so that, there's no dumping, there's no over mowing, things like that.
Yep.
Didn't really see the, very, very rare that anyone's down near the basins. Regular maintenance just of the basins themselves are really all that should be occurring down there.
So I think, I think having a plan like this is certainly acceptable. I think it's just kind of getting where that needs to be. And that could be, just taking a plan like this and then adding around the back and indicating where there's chain link fence. So that automatically kind of goes away. And then and I just not sure where all the retaining walls are. So, you know, just kind of, taking something like this and just indicating you understand what we're trying to prevent. And then there might be a few other little places. What we can do is, I mean, you already, so I don't have a problem, Leah, with like having a plan like this. It's just that how do we get it approved? And I think if you submit something with it, with all the other things in it, and if you want, we can keep it as an administrative kind of process. So you're not coming back in front of the commission for it.
I would be okay with that.
Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, it doesn't need to be a sign someplace no one's ever going to see it. But too many experiences of people love dumping stuff into the wetlands. So, all right. Now we get to ask Jan to switch back to what she was just had up. Oh,
All
there we
right,
go.
so that was 44. 45 is when we ask for a barrier of some kind. They're proposing striking through, as we just talked about. There'll be the fencing around the truck areas. So I guess the question maybe just remains if we want to ask for some kind of barrier in the areas where that 6-foot fence will not be, which, if I'm understanding correctly, is kind of those orange lines.
If I may weigh in there, even in a lot of the places where the orange lines were drawn, there will be fence. If you go back to that plan for a minute. Like, for example, well, it's in Shrewsbury technically, but around the Wetland Series M, the vast majority of where I drew that orange line, that will, there will be a fence around there. I drew that kind of orange limits there, figuring that is a vernal pool area. I know that's a little more. We want to make sure that's noted. The area in Grafton, as it, my orange line stops just under the basin there. Reason being that I could see, people being out there to maintain the basin. Definitely want to note the buffer zone in that vicinity. But as you get beyond a little bit south there, there is a fence, again, that perimeter fence for the warehouse. And no one would be over there.
Yeah, I think maybe just taking this plan, updating where the fencing is, and then having it more of a the goal is pretty straightforward, and so I'll check with the other commissioners, but I think it's something that could be done administratively.
That's fine with me.
Thanks.
Sounds good to
Got
me too.
Okay. All right, Leah, rocking and rolling here.
Okay. 46, no dumping in the no disturb. 47, herbicide and pesticide won't be used in the buffer zone. Fertilizer can be used if they give us a soil analysis that shows it needs to be. 48, sodium-based de-icing products shall not be used on the driveways or parking areas within the buffer zone. They're proposing, except for where runoff is directed toward the site's stormwater system. I guess.
Yeah, and reason for that addition is, I don't know that you can tell a, snow maintenance crew that this part of the parking lot is in the 100-foot buffer, this part isn't, so therefore you can't use salt here. Everything's directed inward to the drainage conveyance. Will run through the stormwater system, get water quality treatment. That's essentially the intent of why I added that note.
So, it'd be great if stormwater treatment system actually treated salt, which it doesn't. So it's soluble, and best it's going to go in the ground. See, this is the reason why you should have put all porous pavement in. Then you wouldn't have to use salt. Big benefit there. I mean, if it's collected, yeah, I mean, it's just, it can't be any direct discharges. I guess I don't have a huge issue with this.
With the addition,
With the addition, yeah.
okay.
So next project you do, you just put all porous pavement in and you solved your problem.
Well, forest pavement takes us into 49 if we're good to keep going.
Yep.
So the porous pavement system will be maintained in accordance with UNH's porous pavement guidelines. System will be vacuum swept at a minimum of 4 to 6 times a year. Remove any leaf debris, don't apply sand. Non-sodium based salt shall only be applied to the system in hazardous conditions, and signs with these prohibitions on them will be installed to ensure notification to the proper parties. They're proposing changing the vacuum sweeping interval from 4 to 6 times a year to 1 to 2. I believe Sandy, you had forwarded us these specs from the UNH materials.
So yeah, that's true. And I would have to go back. I would default to what's in DEP's stormwater guidance for cleaning porous pavement and so forth. I get the 4 to 6 times a year is a little bit, it's more to do with timing of it. So there's certain times of the year you wouldn't do it, but I think 1 or 2 times per year is probably appropriate if they're not doing any of the other things.
Okay.
Yeah, I double check what's in the stormwater manual for porous pavement, I should say.
If I could weigh in here, I actually did look at that reviewing this condition, and the mass manual says as something like as needed or as necessary.
Yep.
Doesn't really specify, so I did kind of drill down on what UNH says, and I looked at a few other jurisdictions as well. I did see something published by UNH that referenced 1 to 2 times a year. And I also found, I think it might have been Pennsylvania, referenced the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. Again, it has to do with, it depends upon what the sources are, whether you need to do that. The source of the sediment.
Okay, 50, if additional development is proposed on site, resulting in a change in use or increase in on-site traffic, they will submit a plan for either protection or replacement of the system. And then implement that plan, and then we would retest the porous pavement system. At no point shall the porous pavement be replaced with standard asphalt. 51, the underground stormwater infiltration units will be maintained in good working order. If they become inoperable, they'll be replaced, or a comparable solution proposed to the commission for review. We can scroll down a little bit on the last page.
Woohoo! Sorry.
52, they'll follow the O&M plan for stormwater management facilities. Inspect them at a minimum of once a year, provide us those reports. Retain the records on site for the most recent 5 years. Then I added, they will maintain the street sweeping schedule laid out in the O&M plan in order to maintain compliance, and shall provide reports to us when sweeping occurs. 53, maintenance access shall not occur off of Parmenter Road near wetland flag A9. That was previously proposed, it's come off the plans since, but I just wanted it covered here because in order to use that area, it would have required probably like a culvert upgrade. So I just wanted to capture that in here. 54, snow shall be stored. I had in the stabilized grass snow storage areas called out on the approved plans. I was wondering if that was the only place proposed for snow storage. We can get into that in a second. Signage will be installed in those areas stating the intent in order to direct contractors to the proper storage locations. Snow shall not be pushed into or stored within any wetland resource areas, no disturb zones, buffer zones, or stormwater facilities. Excess snow to be removed from the site will be in accordance with DEP's snow removal policy. Any sand and litter left behind will be cleaned up. And we can stop here for a second and talk about, are the grass snow storage area is the only area proposed for snow storage, and also why the strike through for grass.
Yeah, so there are other areas designated on the site plan for snow storage, and some of them happen to be within the paved areas or concrete truck parking areas. So I just wanted to keep that a little bit more general.
Got it. $55, the grass paver areas will be maintained per the manufacturer's recommendations. 56, the areas designated as gravel inspection strips on the plans shall remain gravel and shall not be converted to asphalt. They're proposing striking through basically the whole thing. Because those areas were modeled as impervious in the stormwater report. And if they want to change them to pavement, they say they will submit as a plan revision. I do remember that they were called out though as like an LID measure, I think is the conversation they came up in.
So as far as like, it is a plan change. They have to come in front of us. It doesn't mean we'll, we'll approve it. So I don't have a big issue with this change. But to your point, where it was part of the LID that was indicated on the plan, so they would have to me, if they come back and want to change it, they would have to come up with other LID systems to compensate for that loss of that.
Okay, I'll probably call that out in the sentence. And the last one, any future disturbance on site beyond what we're permitting here will come back to us for review.
Sounds good. Just, I'll go around real quick. Travis, anything want to bring up at this point? Okay.
Nope.
Thank you. Jonathan,
No.
Patrick.
No.
Okay. The only other thing that on this order of conditions, if you go all the way to the top, I just have a quick question is, do we have in having a couple of the, you mentioned a couple of conditions, but is maybe put a note at the conditions, or it's not a finding or anything. It's just more of a notification that, that a note on here that, that this site in Grafton abuts us, the continuation of the site in Shrewsbury, and just to kind of refer that there is a order of conditions issued from Shrewsbury. Just more of an FYI if someone picks this up in 10 years.
Sure.
Just it doesn't really change anything in here. It's more just something to notify people that, yeah, just 2 orders of conditions for this project.
Yeah.
From the 2 different towns. That's all. All right. Now, also, if anyone in the public would like to ask any questions, we've gone through a lot of detail. Happy to, clarify some of the things that we're trying to do here. Obviously, what we're trying to do with the conditions is to protect the wetlands during construction, but also provide ongoing maintenance, again, and protection of the wetlands. So if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. What's the next steps here? Anything else to discuss?
That's all I have.
That's all you got. So once around to the commissioners. Travis, anything else to ask or add, or something we missed?
No, nothing else.
Jonathan,
Nothing.
Patrick, anything else that you have questions on?
No.
Okay. To the applicant, is there anything else that you're looking for? Otherwise, we'll get down to doing some voting.
No, nothing further from us.
And Jan, anything from the public?
Nothing from the public.
All right. Okay, so let's talk about, so all the waivers are done. So the next one would be to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions, as discussed and as amended during this public hearing. Anything else we should add to that? Leah?
Nope,
Okay,
that's it.
so I will put it out there. Does anyone have a motion on this?
I'll move to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions as discussed for 12 Centennial Drive.
Second.
Right. I got a motion and a second. I'll go to the voting members. Jonathan,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. So good luck to the applicant, and FYI, I go by this site all the time, so I'll get to watch.
Well, we appreciate everything. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good night.
Okay,
Thank you.
Leah. Leah, what's up next?
George Hill Road reconstruction.
All right. Here we go. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the reconstruction of the roadway at George Hill Road, Mountain Road, and Soap Hill Road. So who is here to discuss that?
Rick Olson from VHP.
You have the floor, sir.
Greg Russell is on as well. So since the last meeting, since we were continued, I provided DEP comment responses and a mitigation plan, a wetland mitigation plan. And today, Jan, you had forwarded peer review comments from Ecotech on the wetland side. So I think obviously I got them this morning, so it's not enough time to turn around and get you the responses back. So there were a few comments in there just about potential resources on site that weren't delineated. So my plan is to get out there this week, probably tomorrow or Thursday, to check those out, so we can turn around responses to the peer review as quickly as possible, and any resources that were missed, we'll get them on the plan set and update our impact numbers. I guess I had one question for the commission. There is also a concurrent stormwater peer review, is that correct? And the results of that are still pending?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, great. So I think that's kind of where we are. I guess I wanted to see if anyone from the commission had any questions in terms of either the Ecotech comments or VHP's comment responses to the DEP or the mitigation plan itself.
Leah, anything that we should talk about tonight to, get this keep moving, or are we still just in kind of a waiting mode to get the peer reviews done?
I have a couple things.
Go for it.
So you guys can skip over my first point, where I'm itemizing impact numbers, because those might change from the peer review anyway, so I can work on that offline,
Yep.
with Eric. But my next point was that they're proposing leaching basins, but they say they're not taking credit for them until they do test pits to make sure that they can happen. So maybe not something we need to completely figure out tonight, but maybe just start thinking about is like how to condition that.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple ways to do it. So, yeah, we can chat about that.
Okay. And
Anything you can come up with, if you could put it in writing, that would be awesome. And then for the next meeting, we can come with a response to that.
Yeah. It would, yeah, I mean, generally be like, if as far as, it's about how much credit you have for your overall design, how much is in the overall design. And then when you go out and do test pitting, you either confirming that design or you have to amend it and revise it. I mean, it's, fairly straightforward. So,
We do have Greg Russell raising his hand. He's just got to be switched over to
okay.
analyst.
I just wanted to point, I think we discussed this last time, but the reason we hadn't done that was obviously because of the width of the road. And kind of the inability to do those test pits without closing the roadway. So I think, the intent was always to kind of do that in construction. Just due to the nature of the roadway and the construction that was gonna have to take place. And that was why we didn't take credit for it in the first place.
Right. Yeah, and so as long as you have your backup kind of thing, and that's fine, and we can come up with a condition for those. I mean, I get it. You're not going to go close the road down. But again, we just want to have it lined up so everyone knows what's going on and you can take credit for what you need to. All right, Leah.
I guess along those same lines, are the potential spots for those leaching basins called out on the plans? I wasn't finding them.
Yes, those are specifically called out on the plans in areas that we, based on the borings that we did, that we were able to do, where it appeared that there was adequate separation to groundwater.
Okay. Because one other thing that we can just figure out as we continue is just obviously regular snow plowing has to happen on the road, and that's totally fine, but we're always trying to say, don't pile snow in your stormwater infrastructure. So maybe we just, if those basins end up happening, maybe we just ask for not like a concentrated snow pile there or something. I know we need to have a fair compromise to allow regular operation to occur, but that's something we can workshop as well. The only other comments I have right now are just the proposed wetland replication area on Pell Farm. I have 2 points on that. One is we've never really had something like this proposed on one of our conservation lands, so I didn't know if the commission had any sort of process that they wanted to follow to like grant that permission, if you will. I mean, we have our land use authorization form, but that's more for the
Right.
scouts to go camping or something. So I mean, we've never encountered this before, so I didn't know how you wanted to handle that.
That's a good question. So I would say that first of all, from just a legal standpoint, we want to make sure we're the ones that have legal authority to grant that. And so that's really just a question of town council on that. I'm just wondering if it somehow needs to go back through select board or something. I don't know the answer to that. And the second part of that, if, from a, kind of a broader view, is if we do have, whether it's conservation land or town land, and there's an opportunity to provide enhanced stormwater, I think that would be an appropriate use for that land, as long as it doesn't displace something that's the critical habitat or some other critical value of that type of thing. But so I'm not certainly not opposed to it, but I'm more curious about how and who can actually do it.
Right.
So
Okay, I can check
yep.
with the TA and town council.
Yeah, and I've
But-
certainly seen it done in other towns. I just don't know how this is set up here. That's all.
Right. And my only other comment was just maybe if we could just schedule a time to meet out there. I just want to check and make sure that proposed replication area isn't where any of our current trails are, and we also do have a proposed trail that we have not started working on yet, but there's one connection we want to make, and I just want to see. I don't think you're in that spot, but I'd just like to check.
Sounds good. We can set up a time. I'll reach out.
Thanks.
Yeah, Leah, let me know when that is. Not to say I
Okay.
can make it, but depends upon timing.
Sure. That's all I have now.
Okay, so I'll open it up to the public if the public has any comments or questions on this project for the George Hill Road, Soap Hill Road, and Fay Mountain Road road reconstruction. If anyone has it, please feel free to raise your hand, and we will call upon you. Anything else on this, Leah? As I waste time to see if someone
Nope.
will have any comments. Other than that, we will be continuing this to October 15th.
I have a quick question before we do that.
Please go ahead.
Leah, on the wetland mitigation plan, I couldn't find it, but is there any sort of hydrology calculations included in that? Like something that shows that the wetland mitigation site would have sufficient hydrology?
I'm gonna defer to the applicant for that.
Trying to get off mute there. There's no information on the hydrology, but so walking out there and choosing the site when I was in the field, it is an area that is very close in topography to the adjacent wetland, wetland 14, which is on the plan set. This area looked like it was previously disturbed at one point, and it had a lot of young growth, and it was like in a little bit of a depression, so it was not very far off from being wetland. It was right on that kind of border area, but just outside the wetland. So without having calculations on there, I think the topography is in a good spot to easily be able to grade down to get to the wetland hydrology in the adjacent wetland and to match it.
And Leah, if it doesn't meet wetland criteria, we continue to fix it until it does, correct? But like 5 years of monitoring.
Can you say that again? I could
Would
only
it
hear the
be-
beginning.
Would it be 5 years of monitoring to make sure that it meets the wetland criteria?
We
Is that how that
typically,
works?
we typically have, we need 2 growing seasons and to achieve 75% successful vegetative cover.
And that has to meet the wetlands plant species too. It's not just
Right.
any.
But
Yeah.
it's just,
Correct.
we don't include hydrology requirements in the monitoring, like dig soil pits and look for hydrologic indicators or anything.
We do not currently know.
We
Yeah.
just monitor for vegetation.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
that's the regulations, but in reality, it also talks about having access to hydrology, and that's part of choosing the right location. That's why we
Yeah.
get a
Because
peer review.
wetland plants will grow just about, I mean, red maple will grow in upland
That's a-
conditions, so
That's a facultative, yeah. So it gets into that's why we have Art, and that's why he goes out and checks it, and that's why we have him do all the replication areas, because to your point exactly, just having 5 red maples doesn't make it a wetlands.
we would be cutting down something similar and then replacing with something
Yep.
similar. That's all my concern. And then one other quick thing, if this is open to the public, if we're gonna have trails near it, it'd be great if it wasn't a square. I'm hoping that's just the plan sheet. If we could have some sort of more natural contours, that would be ideal.
Yeah, so I'll note that's something we can certainly do. And just a note, typically the way these go is you have a professional wetland scientist oversee the construction of this, of mitigation areas to make sure that they are, grading to an appropriate level. So that's kind of where you do those checks on the front end. And like you said, we're growing the plants. If there are adequate conditions and the hydrology is there, then the plant should grow accordingly. And over the 2-year period, which is again typical, with a year in, it'll be pretty apparent if it's not going to work out. And it's at that point that we would submit, we would submit, 2 reports annually, typically. One's a monitoring report, and at the end of the year, it's like the year-end report summing up everything. And at that point, I think after the first year of monitoring is where we'd say this doesn't seem to be working. I think we need to, to fix this. So, but it's the professional wetland scientist's job at the front end to make sure that the hydrology, and the levels are at the adequate levels to meet hydrology and grow plants. So,
Last question, Leah, how big is the mitigation site? I can't remember, or Eric.
They're up to 4,000 now.
yeah, my apologies. So I noticed that when we put that together, it says 4,000. We were planning on replicating 3,300 per the Wetland Protection Act Form 3A. So we will update that accordingly. We'll also reshape this for the next meeting and submit it ahead of time to get it to not a square shape.
All right, that's all for me, Sandy.
All right, sounds good. Anything else, Leah?
Nope, that's all I have.
Jan, anything from the public?
Nothing from the public.
All right, this is going to get continued to October 15th. Do I have a motion?
Move to continue the hearing to October 15th for George Hill
Second.
Road.
We have a motion, a second, roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. See you on the 15th.
Thank you.
All right, Leah, next up.
New England Power.
Okay, let's keep on going here. All right.
Everyone
right.
needs a coffee.
Oh, God, I know. Been a long day. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom to act upon notice of intent, application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of permanent work pads and improving access roads at 121, 116, 104, 115 Creeper Hill Road. Who's here to present?
I am here, Jen Bonta, representing TRC for NEP. Aaron Wersky is also on, and Dan Herslinger, also from TRC.
You have the floor.
Since the last meeting, we have had we submitted our responses to the DEP comments, and we also received the findings from Ecotech, which have been submitted to you. And we are currently working with the planning board to figure out what the needs will be for any special permits, or if we can get one waived for the floodplain district. As far as the Ecotech results, they only had a couple of comments that the wetlands were properly delineated, that the FEMA floodplain map can be used to represent BSLF, and there is a potential vernal pool that is actually located in the town of Millbury that they had some concerns about regarding the color. But that's essentially the summary of those findings. Does the commission have any questions? You are on mute.
I'm sorry, I had a very big yawn and I muted myself. So, Leah, want to bring us up to date on your notes?
Sure. I just have a few. They provided their written response to DEP comments, but I just have a few things that I wanted to talk through with the commission. We can start there. So one of the DEP comments was suggesting that we get existing and as-built roadway and work pad elevations. within BLSF in order to substantiate their statement that there will be no net loss to flood storage. And Jen's pulling up their response letter. So I just wanted to see if that's something the commission wants or if they're satisfied with the applicant's response to that one. Sorry, I don't know which number it was. I think it might be number 1, actually. Yes, it's number 1.
So as the applicant, can you explain your response?
Yes. Erin, did you want to take that?
No, I thought it was comment 2.
You're right. Yes, it's 2.
Okay.
Sorry, I saw BLSF.
No problem. Yeah, so our response, and we did discuss this at the last hearing, right before our last hearing on the 17th, we did get confirmation from construction that we wouldn't actually do any sort of excavation or permanent access roads in that area of BLSF, and we'll just mat both the work pad and the access road in that general area. So we felt that was, being a temporary impact would satisfy the commission on that.
Thanks for your response. Yeah, Leah, I don't know if that's the case, then we just need to make sure we have a condition about, if any excavation or filling is done within this area, they would have to come back to us.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Then DEP talked about asking for peak flow calculations reflecting the land use conversion from vegetation to gravel. Their response was that they meet stormwater standards to the maximum extent practicable. So is the commission okay for going those calcs?
Let's kind of go around the commission just to get other people's input. Jonathan?
No, I don't really have any input on the peak water flow or peak flow calculations. I don't know what we typically do here. So.
Okay. Travis?
I don't have anything to add right now on this.
Okay.
If I could provide some justification for you, if that's helpful.
Please do.
Yeah, sure. So because this project, this is mainly a refresh of existing access road. We're not creating any new access roads. That would be something that, we would typically probably include in a new access road installation or permit request. Here, with it having no impervious surfaces, we've already calculated kind of the disturbance of that area and factored that into our impact numbers. We do plan on, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. We do plan on having, folks on site, the TRC staff on site helping support construction, making sure that those areas are stable. So we felt that, with a linear project, as we stated in our last hearing, it's 37 miles. It is pretty hard to calculate, that much ground surface. And so having, the professionals on site to help support any sort of stormwater controls in that manner, that seemed to be kind of the approach that we took on this project.
Okay. So just to kind of, I understand it's 37 miles long and it goes through a lot of towns. We're mainly concerned with what goes through Grafton. And just reading here, you're going from a 12-foot road to a 16-foot road. Is that correct?
That's right. The original width of the access road was built to 16 feet. And so with, right now it's, spotty at best in most of the access roads throughout the entire project.
So you have basically a historical just call it a gravel road through there that hasn't been maintained, therefore it's grown in.
That's right.
So you can argue all you want about what the actual imperviousness of it is or isn't. Just curious, just like, and I don't need an exact number, but through this area, what's the length that you're kind of going through here? What's the length through Grafton?
Ooh, maybe a couple of miles. I don't know, Jen, if you have that offhand. I'm not sure. I could probably.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Don't.
Yeah.
I could try to scale it if you want to just give me a minute.
I think it's this is Dan from TRC. This is Grafton's the shortest section. I don't even think it's a mile. I'm looking at the it's actually, I'm looking at the our USGS map in the NOI, and it's half of a mile, I'd estimate, just off, just taking a quick look. It's it just kind of clips a corner of Grafton. So it's a short stretch, and it's a good chunk of it in Grafton. It's actually the roads don't require improvements. It's going to be following an existing gravel roads that don't need improvements.
Okay, what you're talking about is about an acre of conversion, if it's about a half a mile. So, and again, it's linear. It's not, I'm just trying to get an order of magnitude. If it's 10 miles, it's 10 miles. Even if it's linear, it's a lot of square foot. It's a lot of acreage. So, yeah, I mean, if you do the right kind of gravel road, you're going to get some infiltration anyways. So, and what's your section on the gravel road? What are you going to be, how are you going to be placing it or restoring it or whatever you want to call it?
They're basically, I think, hold on one second. I can pull up the exact definition that we have in the application. And it's really just it's mainly bringing in stone, maybe some minor grading of kind of cutting and filling into potholes and that kind of stuff, but nothing beyond that.
So yeah, if you can give us, what stone you're using, whether it's MassDOT, number 57, whatever it is, you could let us know what the stone is, then you're really not compromising a pervious area as opposed to a well-graded gravel or something.
Yeah, I can get that for you in just a minute.
Yeah.
If you want.
Yeah, if you want to keep going on other things, we come back to that.
That's great.
All right, Leah, what else do we have here?
So combining a couple of the DEP comments, about like where BMPs are gonna be, long-term. In their response letter, they talked about that they could give periodic updates on the proposed locations of BMPs, as they go. Versus like DEP was asking or was suggesting we ask for an as-built at the end, which is not something that they plan to do. I think if we could just like maybe take the plans or an aerial or something and just have marked out like where things ended up. I think
doing, kind of a handheld GPS location, that type of level, not having a professional land surveyor do it. And then again, to Leah's thought of having it on an aerial, getting an ortho aerial and being able to, put the center line down. Doesn't have to be perfect, but to the whole point, we actually know where it is. So the next time these things happen, there's actually more data, and people go out and look at it to make sure that it's still in the same place. Those type of things. Leah, is that sort of what you're talking about?
yeah, I think that's fine.
It's just, for us, it's being able to create information so the next person that's sitting on the commission can actually look at something and actually understand what happened and have actual real data that that can be used. So is doing something as simple as that more of a GIS kind of approach and using, handheld and placing it on an ortho that is geolocated.
That's fine.
Okay.
Into that.
And then the last one off of the DEP comments is number 5 that's up on the screen now, which is that we don't have an actual O&M plan because like maintenance just ends up falling back to ongoing utility maintenance. I just wanted to make sure that the commission was okay with that.
I would say if you could prepare a letter and describe what your typical O&M is. I mean, it doesn't have to be specific. I'm sure you have certain criteria in the company that outlines it and so forth. And again, something that we can get a response to and have it in our records.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay.
The DOT spec just states that it's a state DOT aggregate.
Okay. Does it give a size?
It goes through stone, which is a product of crushing or blasting ledge, rock, sand, and gravel. An approved blends of these. The sieve size is 2-inch or 1/4 inch.
Okay.
Number 40, number 200. That means absolutely nothing to me, but
So it does to me. What does it say? What does it say on the 200?
0 to 10.
Okay. That's
Percent pounding by weight.
Yeah, so that's a pretty clean stone. And what does it say on the 40?
5 to 40.
Okay. So yeah, so it's a little bit of a broad spectrum. It is still a decent gravel. I wouldn't call it stone with that amount passing the 40, but it's not like they're bringing in a lot of material with a lot of fines that will make it almost impervious. So I don't have a big issue with that. All right, Leah, anything else?
So just buttoning that last one up, so we're okay with just meeting the standards to the maximum extent practicable and not requiring peak flow calcs.
Correct. And that is based on the material being used as being a coarse material and permeable. So you can put a finding on it on why we're not asking for it.
Okay. Beyond that, I have a reminder to the commission that at the last meeting on the 17th, we granted them 3 waivers. 1 to exceed 5,000 square feet of resource area impacts temporarily due to the scope of work. The second is to not include a phasing plan. And I have a finding about that later. The third is to work within the no disturb due to the layout of the utilities. They do have a new waiver request from section 6B4 of our stormwater bylaw regs. They're requesting to not provide TSS and TP calculations. So we do need to talk through that one.
Okay. So the applicant, if you want to present why. What's the waiver based on?
Jen or Dan, you want to answer this one for me?
Yeah,
Yeah, Dan, do you want to take this?
sure. So TSS are running the total suspended solids calculations.
That's correct.
I think it's again a situation where we're meeting the stormwater standards to the maximum extent possible. We're not creating any stormwater. We don't expect to have it generate any runoff that is going to reach any resource areas. We have BMPs that we're going to be using, soil sediment and erosion controls, etc. So again, it sort of falls back, yeah.
So let's talk construction for a moment. What's the vehicle trips going out there? It's construction vehicle, and just how much is that going in and out? TSS is created by typically, going over the surface. It's it's the vehicles and so forth. And then that's kind of one, you have a construction period of time. And then once construction is completed, how often do vehicles go down there?
As far as construction goes, we'll have, there'll be a mowing crew that would go through at a linear path. So they're kind of one entrance in, one entrance out. The same thing would go for our soil erosion, sediment control, and matting crews. And then the same thing would be with construction with bucket trucks and that kind of thing. And they'll be kind of going down in a linear fashion. The day-to-day trips might just be from pickups and bringing crews onto the site. And those would be stationary throughout the project itself. And then post-construction, I think they do a monthly visual observation route that they go down these corridors, but not much traffic whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So, yeah, so let's just kind of go around as far as, so TSS calcs is based on obviously the type of impervious, the type of what goes on that impervious area, what's around it and so forth. And then you would do, treatment of that. There's a whole series of BMPs slash structures that you can put in. So the question is if, what kind of TSS are you going to get on a gravel road through, through the, an undeveloped area and so forth. So, it's just not going to be traveled that much. But let me go around the commission, see if anyone else has questions or comments or opinions on that. So, Travis.
So I guess if that's the reason, that makes more sense. But if it's simply because of BMPs, most projects have BMPs, so I don't know what the purpose of ever doing it would be.
Right. I mean, a BMP can be just a flat area to you have a 50-foot grass area to remove the total suspended solids. But to me, you don't want to do additional disturbance of the area. It's a balance. I think there's probably pros and cons to doing it both ways. But
did this come up in the peer review, or was it just a DEP comment? Or no, this was just another waiver request, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is a waiver request. So they're covering themselves because that's what we have in our regs. And so now it's us to have a finding on why we would or would not allow it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jonathan?
I don't have anything else to add to that.
I mean, it's just, I'm just trying to balance it out. I don't know, Leah, if you've got an opinion.
Dan had his hand up a second ago. Did you want to add something?
I was just going to add, I now that I had a chance to think about it more, it's really the same answer as peak flow. We've agreed we're not creating impervious. So it's sort of the same response that therefore it's requesting a waiver because it doesn't seem, given that we're not creating impervious surface with this project, it doesn't seem like it's applicable. And again, we're meeting the stand, and also given the fact that we are using BMPs. That's
Right.
Just wanted to add that. Thanks.
So when you talk about using BMPs, how are you going to place them and where they're going? And what BMPs are you talking about?
So right now the plans show proposed locations of, typically they use straw wattles on these projects. And
So that's for
so
construction. We're talking more permanent.
permanent BMPs, right? Okay.
Okay,
We-
and
yeah.
those aren't BMPs, those are erosion control measures.
Right. So yeah, right, erosion control BMPs during construction. And then post-construction, we're not proposing any unless we have a field, if we, it would be a field call if we feel that something's needed in an area where there's an issue, where there might be an ongoing issue during operation, for post-construction.
Okay.
It's sort of one of the responses to our other comment, in the Mass DEP comments.
Okay.
Response number 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, from my perspective, if it's a extremely low traveled roadway, that's gravel and that's impervious, I don't see a need to do TSA calcs. And just because you don't have a source of that total suspended solids. Total suspended solids come from vehicles, it comes from, things on the roadway that are crushed by tires and all these things. But that's usually, a roadway, a driveway, or something that's seeing daily traffic or something, not something that has a pickup truck going down once a month or once a week. Or once a month, I think they said. So it's just not a load. And I just go and it just says a kind of a frame of reference is working in other states and how other states designate certain roadways and impervious areas as regulated, meaning, if it's got vehicular traffic on it, then it, you have a source of TSS. But if it's the only thing that's happening is people walking on it, or an occasional vehicle, you don't really have the daily use and so forth. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I don't know, Leah, if you've got anything else.
No, I think that's enough to work off of. We would just need to solidify a vote on it.
Okay. Patrick, anything to add to this?
No, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay. So, so at this point, what we can do is, so we have a request for a waiver, is to have a motion, to grant the waiver based on the findings we just talked about. And we can just move on from there. So, do
I'll
I have a
move-
motion?
I'll
Yep.
move to grant a waiver from section 6B4 of the stormwater bylaw with the conditions as discussed.
Second.
We've got a motion, in a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Travis, you happen to be on my screen at the moment.
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So the motion carries. And just to be clear, everything that we're talking about is basically a gravel driveway, 16 feet wide. So, all right. Leah, what else do we have?
They are requesting a 5-year order of conditions to cover phase 2 work, which will occur years from now. The commission is able to do this. I found it in the regs and gave the citation.
Okay,
It
I was
says,
just going to ask if have we ever done it before?
we've given 5-year ones for vegetation management plans on lakes. That's the only kind I can recall, but this provision says we can do this where special circumstances warrant and are set forth in the order. So we just need to make a decision on, is it the standard 3 or are we doing a 5?
So back to the applicant, what is your, you have 37 miles, not all of it is in Grafton, not a lot of it's in Grafton. Is this based on your construction schedule or what's the reason for this request?
Yeah, there's
Yes.
sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
This is based on the construction schedule. We have phase 1 starting in a few months on some areas, but phase 2 isn't slotted until, Erin, is it late 2025 or 2026?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. And with the 37 miles and several towns, it's just likely going to take a lot of time, and then for everything to regrow, even more time. So we would just like to err on the side of caution.
All right.
Yeah, there's 2 transmission lines that are being worked on, sequentially, I guess. And they have selected some structure work. So the P and the O line, that work is all under this kind of phase 1. Phase 2 on the 313 line is phased in 2 different phases. Only, right now they want to spot treat some of the, more important maintenance that needs to take place. And then that phase 2 scope of the project will come in at a date that nobody has defined just yet internally. And they'll come in and do the remaining structure maintenance that is required for the rest of the line.
Okay, thanks. So, I mean, I'll go around. I mean, I think, if this is a schedule, instead of doing 3 years and having them come back, do another 3.
Oh, I think you just muted yourself.
You ended up
I
on
hit the
mute.
space bar by mistake. If, just having the 5 years makes a little bit more sense if it's going to be anticipated that you may not start till 2025, even though that's really only a few months away, but get it. I don't have a big issue with that. Travis, any comments on the length of time?
No, that's fine.
Jonathan?
No, that's fine.
Okay. And
That's fine.
Patrick? Yeah.
Yeah, no issue.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a big issue. I can't think of any reason not to do this for this particular type of project. Leah, do you know of any reason why we shouldn't be?
No.
Okay. All right. That seems reasonable. What's next?
I have some findings and conditions.
Okay.
Findings, I have 6 of them. The project will be completed in a linear fashion, moving along the right-of-way. The commission agrees with the applicant's rationale that there will be 0 net impact to BLSF due to the pole relocations. The commission agrees with the applicant's rationale about compensatory flood storage not being necessary due to over-excavation of the road and placement of gravel not resulting in impacts to flood storage volumes. It's a limited project, and I give the citation for that, which is for O&M of overhead utilities. Some additional work will occur as part of this project under their utility maintenance exemption that I give the reference for as well. And the commission is in agreement with the delineated resource areas.
Okay.
I have 3 special conditions above our standard ones. Only straw will be utilized for erosion control. Hay is prohibited. I just include that because in some of their specs, it still references hay. Temporary matting shall be removed upon completion and stabilization. Resource areas shall be restored upon completion and reseeded if natural growth hasn't occurred after 1 growing season. And site activities shall be monitored by an LSP as part of DEP's activity use limitations on the site at 230, 244, and 244 rear Worcester Street. Copies of any soil or groundwater management plans, inspection reports, etc. generated through this process shall be provided to the commission.
Okey-doke. Any comments on any of the findings, conditions, or any proposed conditions that Leah didn't go through? Travis?
Nope, nothing else.
Jonathan?
No, I don't have any other comments.
Patrick?
No.
Yeah, I don't have any other comments. I mean, anything that changes based on what we've heard and what's been submitted, they'd have to come back anyway, so I don't have anything else. So I will at this time open up you know, if the public has any questions or comments on this, please raise your hand and we'll be happy to call on you and try to answer any of those questions. And Leah, anything else? I mean, I don't have any issues with the findings or the conditions. I don't have any suggestions for additional ones.
That's all I have, and we have no public.
We have no public, so that we don't have to wait too long for the no public. Okay. Based on that, go back to the applicant. Do you have anything else to add or any questions on the conditions or findings?
None from me.
Okay. Next up is to vote on it. So do I have a motion to close the hearing, accept, issue the order of conditions as with the findings and proposed conditions as discussed?
So moved.
Second.
I like that. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Motion passes. If anything changes, please come back to us.
We will. Thank you very much.
Thank
right.
you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks. Right.
All right, Leah. Do we have anything else?
We have one conservation land usage authorization app that came in for some bittersweet removal this fall at Narium Road Conservation Area. Proposed to be about 8 people who'd like to clip it from the bird boxes that are there and the trees that are along the stone walls. I think I already said this, but this fall. So we just need to approve that.
What do they do with the clippings?
I don't know, but I can find out.
That would be my only question. Don't want to
Mhm.
clip it and then throw it someplace and have more grow. That's it. Other than that, get
Hmm.
your, just, you know, go ahead and do it. So,
I have a lot of opinions about this since I used to do
Okay.
this for a living, but can we like ask them to not yank it out of the trees also? Because I mean, if you clip it as high as you can reach and then down at the ground, then they'll rot and just break down. But if you start yanking them out of the trees, you can cause some damage.
Okay.
Have we ever sprayed? Have we ever had citizen action groups spray herbicide
No.
in situations like this? Because it's just going to grow back next year if we don't treat it.
We have a couple long-term ideas that we haven't been able to roll
I
out
think it's
just yet.
great. I think it's great, but I missed one this year in my blueberry patch, and it probably grew like 15 feet this year.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
mean,
have-
it's nasty.
I have three
stuff,
locations.
so-
I found a root one time this big around. I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell is this? Yep. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm all for it, but we should like consider like a long-term plan for invasives on all our properties, and I think herbicide is about the only way to get bittersweet under control.
Well,
Unless
if
you
you're
mow
the,
it constantly, and then
yeah.
it's just a lawn. So
Well, if you're an
those are
expert,
my
we should
thoughts.
have a little, you know, citizen training program that you could.
50% glyphosate. Just spray it on the stump after you cut it.
There you go. Jonathan, anything to add?
No, I like Travis's idea. I'm not an
Okay.
expert in this.
I am not either. Patrick?
Nope. Other than chopping it down constantly in my backyard.
Yeah, I think we're all doing that. So,
I don't have any in my yard, so don't wish that upon me. So there's no bittersweet. It's just grass and trees. I don't see
Yeah.
any violence or evil stuff.
but you got the smell over there, so
Ugh.
sorry.
It hasn't been for a while, so
Okay,
it's-
good. Okay.
I think they've either shut it down or someone complained enough. Like all my neighbors grabbed pitchforks, so the smell would stop. But
Oh, that's good.
no bittersweet, no smell.
So, Leah, do we need to take a vote on this?
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion to approve this with the I don't know if you call them conditions, suggestions
Suggestion.
presented?
So moved.
Second, you got a motion, a second. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
I am also a yes. And wait a minute. I need to bring Max back. He's
Hmm.
gonna do the last one.
He's not banished he's unbanished.
He's unbanished. I don't know where the hell he went, but yeah. So, so that's all set, right, Leah? What's the last thing we need to do?
I have two really quick FYIs. One is it should go back to shorter meetings, knock on wood, everybody, but we had no new filings for a couple times in a row. And now that we've gotten some of these big ones off our plate, we shouldn't be pushing 10 PM, I hope.
Thank you.
The other FYI is that in theory, another Concom member was appointed while we were meeting at the select board. I will double
Okay.
check tomorrow and make sure that that happened.
We have
But
any information on that candidate?
she actually hopped on here for a second, but then I think had to switch over to attend the select board in case they had
Gotcha.
questions for her.
Okay.
I was hoping to get to talk to her, but haven't had the chance.
What kind of background do you know?
I don't remember, to be honest. I've been in so many details on these projects lately.
Yep. Okay.
That's all I
That's
have.
fine. That's cool. So we just have one thing left to do.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes. Max is a yes.